How your borderline enchants you with her love spell. What is the borderline personality disorder shared fantasy? And why is it so painful? Why do you hurt so much? Hi, this is Mike, and this is the One Thing That Heals BPD and NPD Abuse channel. And today we're going to talk about something you really need to understand. You've probably heard the phrase, but nobody's really explained it to you. You think you know what it means, but I'm gonna get a little deeper with it. When you truly understand what's going on, you'll have a better understanding of why it's like stepping into a bear trap. Once you get in, you can't get out, and the cognitive dissonance that goes on. It's all because of this thing called a shared fantasy. And so if you want to learn how to be completely free of pain from your narcissistic abuse relationship, you can go get my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, which you can find on Amazon, Kindle, Audible. You can find all my audiobooks at audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. Also, if you have a question, if there's something that I talk about that sparks a question, you want me to go deeper, or if there's something that I'm not addressing, or if you have a different experience and you want my take on it, go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. I'll make a video about your question, put it up here so that everybody else can enjoy it. All right. So the borderline shared fantasy. I picked this photo for a very good reason. Her eyes are closed. You can see the fantasy is swirling around her because that's exactly what's going on. A shared fantasy, by the way, there is nothing wrong with a shared fantasy. In fact, all relationships have to have one. So it's not that this is something unique to borderlines, that they create this thing called a shared fantasy, or that narcissists create a thing called a shared fantasy. I think we kind of get lost in all of that. A shared fantasy is necessary. If you meet somebody, you've already got a dream about what kind of relationship you want. You want to have the white picket fence. Maybe you're just a dumb guy, a dumb guy just going through life, and then you meet a girl and she seduces you into this shared fantasy of a white picket fence and a house and 2 kids and barbecues on the weekend. You didn't want that before, but she was able to seduce you into this, and you find out, man, that's what was missing in my life. Nothing wrong at all with having a shared fantasy. In the ideal world, a shared fantasy is something that grows over time. It's shared because the two of you share it. One person, maybe you both share it, you both in the same lifestyle, you both want to be scuba divers in Bermuda, and you meet up and you have the exact same dream for life and you're going to share it together. Nothing wrong with that. At some point, reality will kick in, and the objective reality of what's really going on and your fantasies will have to adjust. You will have to come to an awareness of what her fantasy is. According to yours, you'll have to adjust. This is all normal stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work out. 10 years down the road, people say, you know what, we're just not on the same page anymore. That's a way of saying our shared fantasy isn't working, or I no longer want to participate in your shared fantasy with me. So, nothing wrong with having a shared fantasy. It's just what is going on when the borderline has one. What is happening with that? So, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, they are two sides of the same coin. Please stop leaving comments. It drives me crazy. Please stop leaving comments saying that, I think my borderline might have had comorbid NPD, or she might have had narcissistic traits. It just shows such a lack of understanding. It shows you have a superficial understanding of what psychologists are saying. And quite frankly, many psychologists have a completely superficial understanding. They read it in books. They haven't personally experienced it. I don't give a crap what this year's DSM says. I don't care. Without a doubt, there is no negotiating here with me. Borderline personality disorder is a form of narcissistic personality disorder. The difference is right here, the shared fantasy. They both have it. It's exactly the same thing. It comes from the same lack of identity. It comes from the same trauma. And to truly understand why your borderline's shared fantasy is far more powerful and dangerous to you than in just somebody else's shared fantasy, is you have to understand that the borderline, just like the narcissist, is in a continuous state of tremendous PTSD. They are on the edge of dying. They live in a state of absolute terror, horror, and pain beyond your wildest imaginations. And they are desperately seeking to survive. You are not a person to them. You are a means to survive a horrible death, impending death that is coming down on them. So their shared fantasy isn't something fun they want to create. It's not art class. You know, normal relationships are like that. You have shared fantasies, you adjust yours, you create the fantasy as you go. It gets bigger, it's something you do together. Borderline is not asking for you to be a co-creator of her shared fantasy, because if you become a co-creator of her shared fantasy, it could kill her. Understand, these people are like warriors on a battlefield. On a battlefield, you got a bunch of soldiers there. The guy who has to take time to sit down to sort out his feelings is going to get killed. And he might get killed by his own people, because he is going to get everybody killed if he has to sit around and deal with his feelings right now. The borderline is trying not to die. They don't have time for your feelings. Your feelings could get them killed. In their mind, of course, in their unconscious mind, that's what it means to them. Of course, consciously, all kinds of other things are, the brain is very good. As I've talked about it before, I should keep talking about it. This is true with people who aren't even disordered. The brain will come up with a reason. People will do all kinds of things, logical or illogical, rational or irrational, and then when you ask them why they did it, much of the time the reason they come up with is just some BS their brain came up with. They don't know. Their brain doesn't know. So they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. All they know is if they don't fulfill their internal fantasy, they will die. And your job is to save them. Now, in normal relationships, people do help regulate each other's emotions. But bear in mind, these are people who aren't going to die at the drop of a hat. They're not people whose emotions are about to kill them. These are just people that have lots of emotions. And yes, you can regulate your partner's emotions. I love you. Relax. What can I get for you? Or, you know what? I need some space from you. Or I need to be alone and figure myself out. If you would just say sorry, or if you told me you love me a little more often, take me out to dinner once in a while. These kinds of things help regulate people's. And we need to have more sex. I'm not just a sexual object. You have to love me for. These are all ways that we regulate our emotions. There's nothing wrong with it. The difference is, again, you've got people in objective reality who are able to hold on to their identity and their boundaries, and they're willing to work with you. It's a work in progress. It's always a work in progress. Not so with your borderline. Your borderline's fantasy is that she is absolutely, totally coming apart, and she needs somebody to fix it. The borderline and the narcissist are exactly the same, except the borderline seeks to have God descend and focus all of his immortal attention onto her and make her his special angel. The narcissist is God, and like Jehovah creates humans, this is exactly like the Bible, Jehovah creates humans and then demands that they worship him perfectly and accept him perfectly and follow all of his rules perfectly. And if they don't, he must destroy them. And by destroy, punish them eternally. It is absolutely a narcissist. I mean, Jehovah is a narcissist. Sorry for you religious people out there. If you took the name Jehovah out of it and you took it to a court of law and you said, here's what this human said, they would say, that person is a psychopath, lock them up. But because God said it, it's okay. When Moses was talking to Jehovah, the burning bush, you could go, what the hell that means? When Moses was talking to the burning bush, Jehovah told him, if you follow every single one of my commandments perfectly, then you love me. And if you love me, I will bless you with children, I will make you rich, I will generations, and here it says all the things that he could do, but it's contractual. In order for God to love you, in order for Jehovah to love you, you must first follow every single one of his commandments to the letter perfectly. Now, the rational person would think that the next statement is going to be something like this. This is what you think Jehovah would say. And if you don't follow every single one of my commandments perfectly, then I am going to give you a demerit, and you will have less of my love. You won't have all of it, you will have some of it. Still very contractual, but that's not what Jehovah says. Jehovah says, and if you do not follow every single one of my commandments perfectly, 100%, then you hate me. And if you hate me, then I hate you. And if you hate me, I am going to plague you with boils. I'm going to curse your 7 generations down. This is narcissism. Point I'm trying to make, the borderline has the same narcissistic component, which is they have a fantasy that must be fulfilled to the letter. If you do not fulfill their fantasy to the letter, they must destroy you, discard you, and punish you. By the way, borderlines and narcissists never give up on you. Even if they've discarded you, they will keep attacking you for years. They will spend the rest of their lives seeking to get revenge on you. That's why you should never date one. Even if it's just inside their own mind. My borderline ex used to always bring up Facebook, and I had to listen to her talk about all of her ex-boyfriends. And some of them she would want to hoover back, and some of them she wanted me to go and intimidate, things like that. So they never let go. Jehovah takes the sinners and doesn't destroy them, puts them in hell forever. This is narcissistic personality disorder. The borderline, their fantasy is external. So what they do, unlike the narcissist is like Jehovah. Internal fantasy, I grab you, I put you into my internal fantasy, I give you the costume, I give you the script, I tell you exactly what to do, how to worship me. And if you worship me, then I will deign to love you and bless you. Never works, of course, because it's impossible. Borderline is the same. The difference is, instead of an internal fantasy, it's an external tapestry. They are creating an external tapestry into 3D, and you are walking around in her art studio. You're a stick figure, and she sees this perfect spot in the painting where God is supposed to be, and she's created God, but she just needs a live model to go and be that God. And then you walk in and she goes, oh my God, you're perfect. Here, sit on this pedestal and be my God. And then once you get there, she says, now, your job is to regulate my emotions. I'm about to die here. You need to regulate all of my emotions, make all of my pain go away, make me feel completely loved, and make me feel like the most special angel that has ever existed. And you go, look, I just got your number off of OkCupid. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You what? And then comes the splitting, then comes the discard. But when you're sitting on that pedestal there, The shared fantasy she gives you, she brings you in, she seduces you into her art studio. She gives you wine, she gives you flowers, bonbons, and starts talking about the beauty of what it will be like as she serves you as the perfect worshiper. This is her fantasy. Now, she expects by worshiping you, you are going to deign to give her everything. She sees you as all powerful. I'm trying to find a way to say this without being too graphic. I was having a sexual encounter with my now borderline ex, and she was getting very agitated and very upset. In fact, she was getting, and I was doing, at that moment, I wasn't getting anything out of it, if you know what I mean. I was focused on her, and she was getting very upset, very angry. She said, "You don't understand. I want your energy. I want you to love me with your energy. I don't care what you're doing with your physical body. I want your energy. You're a shaman. Why can't you fill me with energy?" She was, and I just, you know what? I'm out of here. I just got up and I walked out. I said, "I'm done for the day. See ya." And because it was just absolutely impossible. But that is the fantasy. Your borderline. When she tells you you're perfect, you're the one, you think, I'm being seen for who I am, which is what everybody wants. The ultimate goal of all relationships that work is when you work through your shared fantasies, your projections, your transference, which we all do in the beginnings of relationships. But because you don't have a narcissistic personality disorder, you're able to adjust. You also accept that they're human. You also take responsibility for at least some of your own happiness. You know that if you're making love to a partner, there's something you got to at least do to make things work for you. It's not all them. It's great if they can do it all, but sometimes you got to work together. You know that. You're creating a house, a family, a life together. You both have to do your job. The borderline says, no, I'm not doing anything here. Borderline says, you're God. You walked in here and I could see that you were God. That is her projection. She's looking at the picture of Jehovah on the clouds that she's painted on the ceiling there. And she's going, and then you walk in and she transfers that, projects that onto you. In her mind, she said, you walked in here and you brought down the heavens. You bolted lightning into me, and you told me you were Almighty God. How dare you lie to me like that? The shared fantasy is when she's telling you she loves you, you're perfect. It's not a shared fantasy of, I see you for who you are. You have these gifts. I have these gifts. Let's come together and create this life. That's a normal shared fantasy. That's what you thought was going on. You thought she just accepted you for who you were. And she saw all the great things in you that you wish other people saw in you. She saw you in this amazing way, and you thought, my work is done. But no. You walked in, and she had this vision of Jehovah that is going to do everything for her, fill her with power and energy, and make her the most beloved object in the universe. And you walked in because she said to the fantasy, she said, I'm ready for you, my God. I want to worship you, be your concubine, your greatest worshiper, your greatest angel. And then you walk in and she goes, you answered my prayers. The shared fantasy then becomes shared when you, as the codependent, you now bring your narcissism into it. What? I don't have any narcissism. I'm an innocent victim. Well, granted, you have been severely narcissistically abused, but you see, the thing is, you can't have a relationship without a shared fantasy. The shared fantasy is she, as I said, she lays out who you are. and you say, I can do that. I think I can do that. You know what? I can do that. She tells you, you can totally do that. And you go, I can totally do that. And you choose to be the regulator of her feelings because you believe her fantasy. Her fantasy not only is you're going to be God, almighty, powerful, and jolt her with electric bolts of love and take away all of her pain and make her this just loving worshiper, and she's willing to have you tell her what to do. She just wants you to have the power behind it to change and shift everything. She's like, look, you can be whatever you want as long as you can be so powerful that you can make me like what you're doing, whatever it is. But you have to be all powerful and be able to control her to regulate her feelings, and you can't do that. You can't regulate your own feelings. Now, you're not disordered, but you're having a hard time regulating your own feelings. You lost somebody close to you, and or you grew up in a home where you were not seen completely and you have this need to be loved and seen. She's promised you that, so that's the part of the fantasy you've bought into, is she's going to love you like the perfect mother, and then you're going to be happy. But she also said to you, I am going to ask you to do the impossible. You have to not just be God. Being God doesn't just mean that I, as the borderline, am going to worship you. What it means is that if you are buying into my fantasy, it means that you are going to take complete control over all of my feelings. You will accept no matter how out of control my feelings are, because you're all powerful. And because you're all powerful, you are going to regulate me. And you buy into that fantasy. You accept that. You say, now, I never bought into that, but you did. Because if you didn't, you would have very early on would have gone, I just don't think I'm the right person for you. And of course, being the codependent, let us define codependence. Codependence is not, I need to have somebody in my life. I can't stand living alone. Codependence is not, I can't support myself. I need somebody to give me money. Codependence isn't, I'm not happy unless I need somebody else to make me happy. That is not codependence. Those are all codependent things, but those are all different flavors. Codependence is I get my value, my worth, and my lovability, my relevance from something, anything outside of me, whatever it is. I live alone and I'm a monk and I need nobody, and therefore you should look at me as a spiritual human being that is divine. That's codependent. You have something to show the world, and for that they'll accept you, even if they don't come anywhere near you or love you. Just the idea in your mind that because I'm so independent and because I'm so evolved, people admire me, and even if they don't realize they admire me, I'm still better than they are. That's codependent. You need something outside of you. You need something outside of you, otherwise the borderline's shared fantasy will have no appeal to you whatsoever. You will go, hey man, I'm not looking to be anybody's God. When you get loved by, it would never happen, by the way, because they have radar. They would know the second. Believe me, you walk down the street and if you're individuated, they're going to go, I hate that guy. Or they just won't notice him. They notice you because they can see that you need what they have. So when you are on the throne of the Almighty, she has painted her fantasy onto 3D, grabbed you, painted you into it, and then said, I worship you, my God. You then say, great, I've never been worshipped before. And then all of a sudden you start to lose energy. You start to feel tired. You start to feel sad. You start to feel lonely. You start to get cranky. And then she goes, this isn't working for me. I can't be around somebody who's negative. I need somebody who's positive all the time, meaning you don't get to have any feelings. You're God. You're totally self-sufficient, and nothing anybody does or says affects you at all. That's why I hired you. I hired you because I can do and be the infant. I'm not required to be anything, but you are required to meet all of my needs, physical, mental, emotional, financial, reputational. I can do whatever I want. You're supposed to be the one, the God that never changes, that's infinite, and you are going to fix me or I'm going to destroy you. So I can remember when I was going through the love bombing phase, and I can remember I had pictures of it. I don't have it anymore. I wish I did, because you could see me. The pictures that were taken of me as supposedly I'm in the best, most loving relationship of my life. My eyes were like this, and I was like, because I mean, all the energy was just getting pulled out of me. I thought, I'm going, well, she's really loving me. She's doing this for me. She's cooking for me. She's doing that. But I just I can't get out of bed in the morning. And they pull all of your energy out of you. They don't have anything to give. The love bombing is not, if you'll remember, it felt empty. Remember, it's like cotton candy. Yeah, it's sweet and it's tasty, but there's no nutrition there. There's something's not right. It's not real. It's because it's not. And she doesn't see you. In her shared fantasy, it is completely her own fantasy that she's swirling about her, and your job is to fit into that fantasy. And of course, you can't be God. You cannot meet all of her needs. And so then she has to destroy you. And that is when she attacked you in all those ways. So I hope that explains everything. Shared fantasy means that you take responsibility. If you don't take responsibility for your part of the shared fantasy, if you don't understand what was really going on, and if you don't take responsibility for the fact that you had your own fantasy, you misunderstood what she said, you pulled her into your fantasy, then you realize you have two people, each with their own independent fantasies that have the same title on the billboard, but they're two different plays going on, completely different from each other. And you have to own up to your side of it. If you understand that, and you understand she has a mental illness, she is not at all got any empathy associated with you, she doesn't know your dream, she doesn't want to share in your fantasy, she wants you to share in hers, and doesn't know how to do anything else exactly like an infant, because she has regressed to an infant 2 years of age or younger. She's nothing beyond that. That's what's going on with you. So, if you want to learn how to heal from this pain, go to How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend on Amazon Kindle or audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. If you want to ask me questions about what you can do to heal, if you want to ask me about aspects about your relationship or the shared fantasy, go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. All right, I babbled a long time. Hopefully I made sense. I'll see you guys next time.